Can you hear me? Good. Um, I'm Harlan Canner. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I introduced myself that way for a couple different reasons. The first being is that I went through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, recovered from that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I experienced an entire psychic change and driven by a whole different set of motives these days. The second is that I believe that that's like the first message I hope that I can give somebody that doesn't know what's going on here, because that was me for a long time. Had no idea what was happening in Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, I'm going to do a little talk on 1, 2, and 3 today. I want to thank Jim for asking me to come out. You know, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and Alcoholics Anonymous first, so you kind of get an idea from where I'm coming from and why I might be a little passionate about what happens here if we actually do the work. Because what happens is I'm coming in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous for 5 years, and where I was going, I heard no depth. I heard no weight. I heard nothing about the 12 steps. I heard a lot of venting and almost like therapy, and people talking about their problems from that day. But there was no, it was just a problem. And then there was like a round of applause, because the line would always be, but I chose to not drink today, right? I chose to not drink. So I'm wondering why I just can't choose to not drink, right? I'm in and out and in and out and in and out. Where I was going for those first 5 years, I did not know that there was a book in Alcoholics Anonymous. It was open discussion meetings and guys talking about how they hate their wives but they chose to not drink today, and everybody would clap and it would be everybody, awesome, good job, I didn't understand. I'm like, why didn't you drink today, man? That sounds like your cat pissed on the carpet, you broke your lawnmower, you hate your wife, but you didn't drink. Why not? You chose to not drink after a day like that. Please explain why. I don't understand. And so I'm in and out and in and out and in and out for years. And the last place I had went was a treatment center again and again and again. And they told me I had to go to Alcoholics Anonymous again. And I raised my hand and I'm like, why am I going there? Because I did Alcoholics Anonymous and it didn't work for me. And one of the guys that worked there pulled me aside afterwards and he said, "Oh, so you got a new pair of glasses in 5, you clean up the records of your past in 9, and you help God's kids in 12 and develop a personal relationship with the power?" No, what are you talking about? What does that mean? A power? Like new pair of glasses, wreckage of the past? What? I had no idea what he was talking about. And he kind of talked to me a little bit about what actually happens, and that's like, he said, "How long are you going to be in a 12-step program and not do the 12 steps?" So like for me, I heard all the time that, step 1's the easiest. I've been practicing it my whole life. That's not my experience. I don't understand. When I come here, I don't understand what any of that means. What's this unmanageability mean? What is this? I gotta admit powerlessness. You mean to tell me I gotta say I'm weak? Like I didn't understand step 1. Even when I was coming in and out of AA for years and I heard all this talk, right? I thought I knew what it meant, right? I thought the only part of powerlessness is that once I start, I can't stop, right? That was the only part I knew. I didn't know there was this other part, that I didn't have the power to just not start again, which is like the whole thing. And unmanageability, I thought it was because like I'd get loaded and I'd like ruin relationships and crash cars and burn everything I ever had down to the ground and lose another job and another girlfriend and my mom would be sitting in front of me crying again and blah, blah. But that I come to find out that what I think step 1 was not step 1. Yes, it says if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take, probably alcoholic, right? Cool. I can answer yes to both of those. If you can only answer yes to one, that's fine, because it says or. So this man a guy approached me, which never happened before in my life. in those 5 years I was in and out. I never had somebody approach me and say, "Hey, you got a book? What are you, a book?" I honestly thought he was talking about the Bible because I heard everybody talking about God, and I'm like, nah, I don't need one of your books. And it meant the big book, Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, he was practicing the primary purpose, right? It was action in working. I'm witnessing it, right? Um, and he approached me and asked if I had a book. I said, "Hey, man, you look miserable. Come to find out, I'm miserable." Right? It's like, that's the best I got when I get sober. See, I think everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous is fake. I'm trying to figure out what this guy has in his coffee because he's real happy. He's real talkative. Probably got a little bit of some, some stuff in that coffee because he seems happy. Happy and sober in the same sentence to me is mind blowing. Because what happens to me when I get sober is like, it's real tough for me. It's real tough. I have trouble getting out of bed in the morning. I have trouble like exerting myself enough to even go to work and talk to people. Talking to people is just, it's real. It's difficult. It's tiresome. I can't seem to do any of that stuff. I can't like hold a job for too long. And I don't know why I'm like that. Right? Everybody in my entire life said, "Harlan, if you quit drinking, your life's going to be great." And every time I tried to quit drinking, my life was absolutely miserable, right? And at first, it didn't necessarily seem like that. It wasn't like a huge upheaval of emotional displacement. It was like little things started to just kind of take hold here and here and here and here and here. And after a certain period of time, I'm just so restless and irritable and discontent, like the literature says, that I get loaded. Right? I just can't take it anymore. Whether I wanted to get loaded or not, I had no other way. That was all I knew. Right? Come to find out, that's like part of this whole thing. So with one, the way he explained it to me, I find for being here the last few years, I came to believe that most of us die because of a misunderstanding of step one. Mainly because unmanageability is explained terribly in most rooms in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm still in meetings today and people are saying unmanageability is because they totaled a car. Why? Why though? Why'd you total that car? Because you drank. Why did you drink again? Like, let's get to the core of this unmanageability, right? What happens is I get sober, right? My first awakening in Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't know it at the time, but my first awakening, I can look back and I can see that it was a paragraph in the doctor's opinion, and it says we become restless, irritable, discontent unless, that's talking about when I'm sober, right? Because the following part of the sentence says, unless I can experience the sense of ease and comfort that comes again at once by taking a few drinks, right? I'm seeking relief with the drink. Relief from what? The entire problem, my sobriety. The guy said, "You're probably a real alcoholic." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "You got a sobriety problem, not a drinking problem." And my mind was just, whew. I'd never connected to anything more in my entire life when he said I had a sobriety problem, because I just could not do it. Yes, I have the allergy, right? Cool. If that was the only thing with Alcoholics Anonymous, we wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? I would just not drink. If that was if that was all I had, I wouldn't drink. But see, the problem is that like this lack of power thing, I will drink again, right? Because what happens is that paragraph, I become restless, irritable, and discontent unless I can experience a sense of ease and comfort, right? So what happens is I give in because I can't take that feeling anymore. I just can't take, like, it's just so much in me. And I give in again. And I spark my phenomenon of craving and I go through a spree, right? I emerge remorseful with the firm resolution not to do it again. I'm sorry, mom. I'm sorry, girlfriend. I'm sorry, all the people that care about me. And I get sober again. And what happens is I don't do the 12 steps. I don't grow in a relationship with a power. I still don't have any power. I'm seeking it everywhere, right? I'm seeking it everywhere. I just don't know that's what I'm doing. My whole life, I was trying to seek a power, some sort of power, and I wasn't looking in the right place, right? So what happens is I don't go through this work. I don't do the proper steps. So what happens after a period of time is I get restless, irritable, discontent again. I can't stand the way that the other day my boss looked at me. Man, that's still irking me, right? He looked at me with this thing in his face. No, I don't like that. And I hate my boss. And then I hate everybody that works for my boss because they work for him. And then my girlfriend, she's got this thing that she does when she eats, you know? Oh, I can't stand that anymore, right? My parents keep calling me to check on me. God, they're annoying, right? And just everything seems to just no, just gnaw at me inside. And what takes that away? I take a drink. Every single time I relapse in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, the sense that I got when I took that first drink, just I could literally breathe again. I had no, I w- immediately, immediately that sense of ease and comfort. So, like, if I'm seeking relief when I'm sober, I need some relief. Now, how can I get that without the drink, right? Come to find out, that's what's going on here, right? So the unmanageability, what that paragraph that I was talking about in the doctor's opinion, that's the unmanageability of step one. Is I get sober just to get loaded again because I manage my life, right? I just That's what I do. That is what we do. I might be able to like think I'm steering myself in the right direction for a little period of time, but then those little things start to gnaw at me again, and I don't like it, and I get irritated, and my mom calls me in. What's wrong, Harlan? Shut up. Like I can't make a firm resolution to be a better person. I can't make a firm resolution to just not drink. I can't make these firm resolutions. I can't live my life off of a motivational quote. You know what I mean? Like I can't do that. I need to access a power which we find in Alcoholics Anonymous. In my experience, I have found in Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, I find the reason why I said most of us die because of a misunderstanding of step one is because if there's inventory I know I need to write and I'm not doing it, if there's amends I know I need to do and I'm not doing it, if there's a 10th step, if something crops up throughout the day and I don't do it, if I'm not doing morning 11 and nightly inventory, and if I'm making the choice to not help other people, I'm managing my life again. If I'm not taking the actions that are laid out for me that are a direct path to access the power, I'm managing my life. And what happens when I don't do that stuff? I fall back and I'm getting loaded. I need to consistently take these actions to access this power. Because what happens is I find that I'm blocked when I come here. And when I stop taking these actions because I start to manage my life again, I become blocked. I become blocked from the light. I become blocked from the power. And things start to get, I start to become driven by ego again. I start to become out of touch with the power. And I start to separate. And I start to listen to this again. And that's the problem in the first place, right? So like that unmanageability, that's why I see most of us die, because they don't understand that. They don't understand that, like, I'm making these decisions, right? Because here's the thing. We alcoholics are an extreme example of self-will run riot. And the second part of that sentence is, though we usually don't think so. So what happens is that I'm self-propulsion all the time, thinking I'm doing great because I got a couple years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm like doing some stuff and I'm speaking at some meetings and I'm like sponsoring some guys and I'm like making moves and people know my name in AA and I think I'm the guy. And what happens is I start to fall away a little bit, and I'm going into work and I'm telling my boss how he needs to run his shop that's been there for years. I'm telling my coworkers what they need to change. I'm telling my girlfriend every day how she needs to act. And next thing you know, I have this little thing and I don't feel right. And I look and I'm like, oh, wow, I fell away. I started to manage my life. I started to make my decisions. I wasn't seeking power and direction. Um, the more I've stayed sober, the more I've realized how much power I need, how much direction I need, because of how much I don't actually know, even though I think I might know, right? Especially when it came to like 12, right? I was like, I know this book like the back of my hand, and like it didn't matter. Right? Like if I'm not, I need to seek the power, right? So the unmanageability in step one is I get sober just to get loaded again. The powerlessness part is like, so we've determined that my problem is sobriety, and my answer is drinking, right? So like that second part of powerlessness is like, if I don't have another solution when I get sober, I am guaranteed to get loaded again. Guaranteed. I don't have the power to not just pick up. I don't have the power to just choose to not drink today. It says in the book that we have lost the power of choice and drink. That's what it means, right? I've lost the power of choice. So I need to do something to access the power. So lack of power is our dilemma, right? If I can admit these things to myself, you know how difficult what like when I had an understanding of that stuff, right? I would run around half my life before I was even in AA and tell people I was an alcoholic. I had no idea what it meant. I almost wore it as a badge of honor. But then when I found out what it actually meant, it was like, ooh, yeah, I'm Harlan, right? And so then what ended up happening was this guy that was taking me to the work showed me, introduced me this way that like I needed, showed me I could not do it by myself. I had to look at my life, right? That paragraph in the doctor's opinion says this is repeated over and over. And unless I can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. Psychic change is the result of the 12 steps. So he said, that's the result. So we should do this work if you want any type of hope, right? And I've come to find, and then two was like, can't believe a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. Well, first of all, that's an accusation saying that I'm insane. First of all, I didn't like that. I was offended, and he proved to me. He said, "Look at your life, Harlan. Look at your life. You landed in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the last house on the left. You know, we don't come to Alcoholics Anonymous doing great. You know, I had to look at like my decisions and where I would land myself. I knew what was going to happen every single time I got loaded, but I couldn't stop getting loaded. I would still get loaded. But I'll tell you what, the wording of the second step is probably the most important part for me, because it says came to believe, right? It doesn't say you got to believe right now that God's going to restore you to sanity. Because here's what happens. Came to believe is coming to believe. Like through these, I cannot think myself into believing in God. I cannot do that. There's a blockage there also, right? So what I need to do is I need to take some actions. What I needed to do was admit the possible existence of something. Creative intelligence, spirit of the universe, whatever you want to call it. Czar of the heavens, my favorite. It said as soon as we did that, we felt a new sense of power and direction. So I was like, maybe, man, just like maybe. He's like, do you believe I have a power? I'm like, sure. Right? So it was just like we went through We Agnostics, and We Agnostics blasted every idea I had about God out of the water. It covered everything I had, old ideas, what I thought it was like. And it broke it down to me that maybe what I was thinking wasn't right. Right. And as long as I could see, maybe it's not me. Right. Possible existence. And I'll tell you what was one of the most important things for me was 12. Because that's when I saw a lot of two. That's when I started to really see things in my life. I started to see, because I went through the steps decently quick, right? So from 2 to 12, there wasn't like a long span of time, right? But what happened was I started to see these things in my life. Once I opened my mind, I don't even want to give myself the credit for opening my mind, right? Once my mind was open enough, or I was cracked open enough, to be able to maybe see that this like wasn't my doing. All these coincidences started to happen to me. All these coincidences. This kind of laid out perfectly, and this kind of happened, and this kind of happened. It was all in my favor, and it's not like I couldn't deny it. You know, I couldn't deny it. It was just like my experience. I could see that like this was not my doing. Um, but like I said, I couldn't think myself into that. I needed to take the actions that were followed, right? Um, and then I could witness it. I could witness it happening in my life. That's what I need. And then he's like, okay, so then what about three? Three for me was the whole thing, right? I think that it's everybody else's fault why I'm always getting loaded, right? The world and most of its people were often quite wrong. For me, everybody was usually wrong all the time. Okay. Um, I never wanted to look here. I didn't never had the ability to look here. It was never my fault. I'd get fired from every job I ever worked at. And it was always because that guy was an asshole, you know, or whatever it was. It was never because I was falling asleep while tattooing people. You know what I mean? Like it was never that. It was always somebody else's fault, right? My relationships, it was always her fault. She always did something. You know what I mean? It wasn't because I was doing everything I was doing, cheating and lying and going to the bathroom every half hour, staying in there, falling asleep in there. Whatever, it didn't matter. Nothing was ever my fault. It was everybody else, right? Um, Coming to find out in step three, what I find out is that like what the root of my troubles is. It's my selfishness and my self-centeredness. To me, first of all, I was offended when he told me that because I didn't think I was like a selfish person, you know? And because like once in a while I would try to do something nice for the girlfriend or something, you know. But here's the whole deal with that. I would always expect something, right? And then I started to get an understanding more of this by following the work, right? In sobriety, I started to really see this. What happens is I started dating this girl. I'm a few months sober. I'm through the work. I'm sponsoring guys, and I'm dating this girl. And what happens is she goes to work that day, and I have off, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna clean the house. I'm gonna order some flowers. I'm gonna cook dinner. I'm gonna do the laundry. I'm gonna do all this stuff, right? Because I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice guy. I'm gonna do that for her. So what happens is I do all that whole thing. The flowers get there. It's a beautiful thing. She gets home right as I'm done cooking a fancy dinner. She walks in the house, and I'm like, "Hey, babe, how was your day?" She goes, "Oh, it was real long. I'm gonna go lay down." Excuse me. You don't see everything I just did for you. And it immediately it registered. Am I not self-seeking even when trying to be kind? Right? Am I not delusional? Right? Do I not have these expectations of everybody else? And why do I only do stuff so I can gain something from it? And I want her to tell me how great I am and stuff. And then there was this huge blowout fight. And I started to get some awareness of what this stuff meant in three. See, three is like what separates me the most is my ideas, my judgments. Um, Everybody's always wrong, right? One of the best ways to put it is like my opinions are facts, for sure. Everybody else's opinions, if they're not the same as mine, are wrong. They're not their opinions, they're just wrong. They just don't understand, they just don't know. And I went about that my entire life. My friends would get in my car and I would hear the new song, right? And my friends would get in my car and I'm like, bro, listen to this song. It's the best song I heard all year. Put it on. They'd be like, eh. I'm like, wow, you're wrong. You know, just like I couldn't see that. Maybe they just didn't like the guy from music and it's just their opinion and stuff like that. And I'm just like, no, like you're wrong. I don't even like you anymore. Just like, nope. And that's how I went about my entire life. Right. And there was always like an ulterior motive with stuff, always an ulterior motive. Um, I don't know what's happening in 3 when I'm supposed to do it, right? Too many times do I have guys ask me to sponsor them because they want this information that I share when I speak, and I'll do an hour talk at a meeting, and a couple of guys will ask me to sponsor them because they like what they hear, because they like the information. They don't want the transformation for themselves. They just want to learn a bunch of shit and sound good in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people that died because all they wanted to do was sound good in Alcoholics Anonymous. And they wanted the information, but they didn't want the transformation. The only reason any of this information, I have anything to share is because I sought the power so I could have the transformation. And that's the only thing that's allowed me to be here today. So like, I didn't know what was going on, right? I didn't like sit there and study and break down every word and have to have this understanding of why there's an or here and a he there and a why there. Like, none of that was going on. It was like action, 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 action. And that was like, he said to me, this is not a program of figuring out, Harlan, it's a program of action. I was like, wow, guy's got an answer for everything, And, but it's what I continue to do. And when I have a problem now, what usually happens is that it comes back to step 3, because my judgments, my ideas, all this kind of stuff is focused there. Every resentment I have can be brought back to 3, right? This person's not acting the way I think they should act. Every single one can do that, right? There's so much that comes out of 3. I didn't know that. I just thought it was just like this prayer that like I was supposed to say every day in the morning. I really don't know what I'm asking for. Bondage of self. And I don't really know what that means. And, I just did it. Now looking back on it, I really have this understanding. I went back to the work a few years sober. And when it came to that, we did things a little bit differently. Like we did work around each bedevilment. And I'm just like, I don't know why. I don't know why I'm doing this, because like I'm 3 years sober. I'm not bedeviled at all. I don't know what you're talking about. And we did this thing where I prayed and meditated on each bedevilment and saw what came back and wrote down everything that came back. I was not as well off as I thought I was. I just had all kinds of truth that were presented to me that I had no idea were going on. And then continued through the work and had amends to make and stuff like that, ways that I acted based on those. And it was a really powerful experience. So like 1, 2, and 3, it's like 1's the foundation, 2 is the cornerstone, 3 is the keystone. 3 is the keystone that holds it all together. That's like what's in the center of the arch that we're walking through, right? I don't know that, right? Because we, in meetings, it's like 1, 2, and 3, cool. A couple minute shares, and then everybody's like, oh, got to the scary 4th step. And I think that's talked about wrong in AA, because it's very what comes out of 4. The relief that happens in 5 and what we see differently, and I see my part, and then I cracked open a little bit more, like the stuff that follows through that is like what's got to happen. See, the thing with the steps, I always thought it was this thing of just like I would gain all this stuff. And I come to find out that that's not what happens. What happens is the steps is a process of removal. Things start to get broken down within me, right? When it comes to this idea of God, Ralph touched on it a little bit right before me. And it's this fundamental idea of God deep down inside every man, woman, and child. So there is this power within all of us. But the problem is when I come here, what's it blocked by? Calamity, pomp, worship of other things, right? It's blocked by me. I have to get me out of there. I have to get these blocks that I've built up over the years out of the way. And that's what happens in the steps. I have the light inside me, but it's surrounded by a wall. And what happens through the process of these steps is these things kind of just get taken out. These bricks start to get broken down for me. and the light started to be able to shine through. I started to feel a way I never felt before. I started to have like a purpose. I would wake up and not cry because I had to stay sober that day. That was a thing. I used to, where I'm from Pennsylvania, and there were those years of in and out of AA. I remember I used to wake up in the morning and I would cry because of the idea of having to stay sober, right? And that's like this thing within me that I talked about earlier, right? And that restless, irritable, and discontent is like this spiritual malady. And that's a word that I hear in all Alcoholics Anonymous all the time, but it's not touched on. And it's that's the whole thing, man. Like I got this. I need a power, right? Spiritual malady. Malady is just an illness. I have a spiritual illness. When it comes to like this whole program, I viewed it as like this really culty, radical thing, because throughout my life, it's like medicine's everything, and I'm just waiting for like a medicine. I'm waiting for a pill or something I can take, or a class I can do, or something like that. And I come here and you guys tell me I need to find God. I need to access a power, a higher power, this kind of stuff. And I can't comprehend it. And that's why that's why it's not a program of figuring out. It's a program of action. And if you take the actions, then you'll see it. That's when I saw it, right? I need to access this power, not only to be able to not drink. It says to live in here. It says to live, right? And what we find going through the steps is that I don't have the power to remove my resentments. I don't have the power to outthink my fears. I don't have the power to be better in relationships, not just with a woman, but with my friends. I don't have the power to do any of this stuff. So I need to access a power. Like I said earlier, like most of my life, I can look back on it and I can see that I was seeking some type of power. I would do it with my career. I would always want to be the guy, the best guy at the tattoo shop, right? I would do it in my relationship. My girlfriend would text me. I would read it, not say anything back for like an hour because I thought I was holding the power card, keep her on edge, right? I needed the power there. Did it in relationships with my friends and my family. I didn't know like that's what I was doing, but like I was always looking for power, right? My whole life I'm looking for a spiritual solution and I don't know it. And I land in Alcoholics Anonymous because all this stuff that I thought was so bad that happened. And now I don't know if that was bad, because what happens, I'm a firm believer that God brought me to Alcoholics Anonymous so I could find God. I didn't know that's what he was doing in the moment, right? But that's something I've learned to also trust, right? Because when God presents these new opportunities for me, I don't see it like that, right? I lose a job or lose a relationship or something scary happens. Something scary happens. And I'm like, oh, I don't like this. This is not good. But if I trust the process and follow the path, what I come to find out is that this was part of it. This is part of the plan. I just have to trust God, right? These guys always told me, trust God, trust God, trust God. And I would always call them the questions and it would be trust God. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What does that mean? What does it mean? And I just followed what was placed in front of me. And it would just be blatant, stone after stone after stone was placed in front of me. And I would blindly walk onto these stones because I didn't know where it was leading. Because what was continuously said to me was, look where you lead yourself. Maybe trust something else. Why don't you do this? Trust this power. And I did. And I continued to walk. And it was so much fear and it was so much uncertainty and a lot of ideas that I had. But when I followed that and I trusted God, my life was beyond anything I could ever imagine. Right. One of my first experiences was actually really seeing it was I was doing an 11 step the one night, and it was like, where was I selfish? Where was I afraid? Where was I, stuff like that? And I answered a couple things, and it was like real basic stuff, the usual. And the guy that was sponsoring me at the time was like, yeah, I don't care about any of that, Harlan. He's like, where are you really being selfish? I'm like, I don't follow. He said, where are you being selfish with the gifts that God gave you? And mind you, at that time, I'm a year sober. I've been a tattoo artist my entire life. And when I got sober, I started working at a breakfast place. I was slicing bagels, spreading cream cheese, because it was a random opportunity. I got comfortable there. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with doing that if you're doing that. You know what I mean? But I got comfortable there, and I was in this routine, and he's like, you're an artist, aren't you? I said, yeah, I mean, I've done that most of my life. He said, well, how long are you going to slice fucking bagels? Pardon my language. And I was like, well, what am I going to do here then? Right. And he said, why don't, and then we talked about the fears behind it, and we talked about all this stuff. We got down to some stuff. And he's like, why don't you trust God here too? Why don't you trust God here? So I did 2 drawings over like a week and a half, 2-week period. 2 drawings, that's it. And next thing you know, my phone rings, and it's a job opportunity at a tattoo shop. And I'd never met the guy, never did nothing. It was just like this wild set of circumstances that I didn't understand that just like happened because I moved my feet just a little bit, and I trusted God just a little bit. And that's been my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. I continuously just like, I question it. I'm not like fully in the wheelbarrow like we talk about, but I'm hanging on the edge of the wheelbarrow as he's going over the tightrope, but I'm still there, So but if I move my feet just a little bit, I have found that God just provides the rest over and over, and is just continuously throwing stuff in my path. And through that, then it's like even more reliance upon God and even more trust. And I'm like, I got to trust you again. I'm so tired of this sometimes, right? But I do that. And I've found that through getting in contact with this power, I've been able to do things in my life that I never thought were like possible. I have relationships with my family back. My career is beyond anything I ever imagined. And I don't take any credit for any of that. People are like, yeah, Harlan, but you did the work. Yeah, but like, what gave me the ability to do that? I didn't. I wouldn't do any of that stuff. I looked at all you guys as weirdos and like cult members, and like I wasn't going to do any of that thing. The last thing I was ever going to do with my life was the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's it. And for some reason, another coincidence, which is a funny word to me now, there was this guy who just kind of swooped in somewhere at this new meeting that I hated going to, and introduced himself. And for some reason, like I said, for some reason, there was like a level of communication there, and I connected, and it was just like too perfect. That wasn't of my doing either. You know what I mean? So right there, it's like, oh, funny coincidence. Like I said, I don't believe in that anymore. So like my experience 1, 2, and 3, 1 was just like I had to have this understanding of it because I heard so much misinformation before in Alcoholics Anonymous. This was a man who was armed with the facts about himself and alcoholism. Armed with the facts of alcoholism, knew what it was, right? Knew what it was. It wasn't just about drinking. I just thought it was drinking. If that was the problem, I would just not drink. The problem is I cannot just not drink, right? And that was a revelation when I heard that. Because this whole time I thought I just had to choose to just not drink. Put the plug in the jug, Harlan. Go to another meeting today. I went to 5 meetings in one day one time, and I didn't do the steps. And I called the guy at like 9:30 at night. I got some random guy's number, right? Called him, and I'm like, I'm going to kill myself. This is like in those 5 years that I was trying. I was like, man, listen, I'm going to get loaded or kill myself. And he said, go to another meeting. And it was 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. And I was like, bro, there's no more meetings right now. He said, shoot for midnight. Shoot for midnight. That's what's going on here. That's what I thought was happening here. I was just supposed to hold on. I was just supposed to hold on every day. And I have found that the exact opposite of that has happened by going through this work. There's no holding on. There's the freedom. See, the thing with drinking was it provided relief. I thought it provided freedom. No. It was relief. The feeling I get by going through the steps, helping God's kids, cleaning up that wreckage, developing a personal relationship with this power is this sense of freedom, this sense of purpose, this sense of, I'm not holding on for anything anymore. That was the most miserable time of my life, was my untreated sobriety. It was worse than when I was out there getting loaded. My untreated alcoholism is way worse, right? So the freedom I get, that's what I was looking for my entire life. I was just always looking in the wrong places. So what time is it? Oh, it's like 4 o'clock. I guess I got to wrap it up. I'm going to wrap it up, if you guys don't mind. I'm going to wrap it up with, since it's 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to wrap it up with Dr. Bob's third step prayer, if you guys want to join with me. Dear God, I'm sorry about the mess I've made of my life. I want to turn away from all the wrong things I've ever done and all the wrong things I've ever been. Please forgive me for it all. I know you have the power to change my life and can turn me into a winner. Thank you, God, for getting my attention long enough to interest me in trying it your way. God, please take over the management of my life and everything about me. I am making this conscious decision to turn my will and my life over to your care, and I'm asking you to please take over all parts of my life. Please, God, move into my heart. However you do it is your business, but make yourself real inside me and fill my awful emptiness. Fill me with your love and Holy Spirit and make me know your will for me. And now, God, help yourself to me and keep on doing it. I'm not sure I want you to, but do it anyhow. I rejoice that I am now a part of your people, that my uncertainty is gone forever, and that you now have control of my will and my life. Thank you and praise your name. Amen. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Harlan.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Harlan.
Incredible.
I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Harlan.